So we're missing Conseillère Lise and Conseiller Yvon. Conseillère Lise. And Conseiller Yvon, there.
Finding.
Joanne, just so that there's no confusion, perhaps if you just pass on so that I could indicate what we'll be doing next with the information that we have.
Can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we might as well start because I see that we're live. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another budget meeting. Bienvenue encore à une réunion budgétaire. And from last week, we went through the operating Department of Community Services. And before proceeding and moving on, I'm just going to ask our CEO if he has any information to provide to us before we proceed. But before doing that, we need a volunteer as a mover and a seconder for the agenda. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Leo.
Is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Malette. Be it resolved that the agenda for the budget meeting of council held on March the 22nd, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried. Adopté. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? None? Okay, and I'll pass it on to you, Jay, if you just want to provide us with an update of how the day is going to unfold for this meeting.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. How we plan it to unfold and how it will might be two different things, but there's I think a memo that you just received that was germane to last meeting with respect to community projects. And so I think Steph will just go through the $70,000 list ahead and have council discuss that and be aware of what those projects are, and then he'll move on to his capital at that point. And then after that, if there's room, then he's just going to flow through the other departments that are in his purview, which is economic development and planning and building. So back to you, Your Worship, but Steph will be talking about his projects. Thanks.
Okay, and Stéphane, if you want to provide us with an update regarding the information that was received earlier, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, again, in consultation with staff, we've outlined exactly what is being planned this year pertaining to that one line item, which is proposed or the community projects. So we had earmarked $70,000 for the following, which was provided to council this morning. So $20,000 going towards the Sturgeon Falls Beautification Committee, and their project this year is the trash cans for King Street. We're also dedicating $12,500 to host Canada Day, Halloween, Kids Safe Halloween, and our Christmas parade. We are looking at $12,500 to purchase banners and flags. Banners going on Front Street, banners or flags that are the big West Nipissing flags that we see throughout the community, and also the flag Franco-Ontarien we see as per our bilingualism bylaw. We want to address that this year as well at our key municipal buildings. And also part of that is the flag, the Canadian flag that is situated at the marina. $7,500 is dedicated for the design and construction of the Sturgeon Falls welcome sign. And $17,500 is for beautification, community beautification initiatives in all of our communities. So we generally, Lynn will reach out and work with our community volunteers, and we allocate money pertaining to some of the projects that they want to undertake as far as flowers, plants, flower pots, mulch, paint, garbage cans, etc. So that is the makeup of the $70,000 line budget for community projects.
Thank you, Stéphane. Are there any questions? Conseiller Alice, Conseiller Chris?
Thank you very much, Stefan. The initiative, I had talked about initiative also project, where if it was the same thing, but apparently it's different, but we'll deal with that one first. Obviously the one for beautification has been transferred to, and it was agreed by all council, transfer to capital project. Is the welcome sign, the 7,500 is just simply to design it or to buy
No.
also the sign?
Yeah, it includes the construction of the sign and the installation, yes.
Okay, so, and the sign itself obviously would be part of the capital project.
Would be part of what, sorry?
The capital project, the sign, because it belonged to the, it's a big asset all around the municipality, the sign.
I'm not sure, and Elisa
Okay,
might
well-
be able to help me out. I'm not sure if we, if the first sign initiative was gone through capital or if it was an operating expenditure. I don't recall,
Okay,
but maybe we can look into how we transferred the funds the last time.
okay.
Councillor Chris?
So I just have a couple questions. The special events, I'll just list my questions and you can answer them all. The special events budget, how does that compare? Let's forget about 2020, but how does that compare to 2019? For a big picture. The flags and banners, I thought we'd arrived a couple of years ago, and I realized we've had a pandemic, but I thought we were going to put some sort of flagpoles on the municipal building on the highway side. Am I incorrect about that? And then just some clarification on the sign, is that similar to the ones that we have in Field River and that kind of thing? And if that's where it is, and where's it going? And if it's going on the highway, shouldn't we have two, one for each direction? Thank you.
So I'll start in reverse order. We'll start with the welcome sign, Councillor Fisher, if I may, Madam Mayor. So the welcome sign, we were considering having that at the where the lookout is, just below the lookout. We'd have to look to see if it's not going to be highly visible on the same on both sides of the highway. We were only considering one currently because you can put it on an angle. We weren't considering two for the time being. So that's, and because it's within the connecting link limits, we can control the jurisdiction of how that sign is erected and positioned and whatnot. We feel that the sign is fairly going to be highly visible at that location if we were to continue on with that. I believe your second question, Councillor, was relating to special events. That is mostly in line with what we spent in 2019. Obviously, 2020 was not a normal year, so we can't compare it, but that's in line to similar past year budgets as far as hosting events. And I'm now forgetting the first question you originally asked, Councillor.
It was my second one, but I thought a couple of years ago, and actually I think it was Jeremy's initiative, but we were going to put some short flag poles on the side of the building and hang flags because we couldn't, we hadn't got enough mass to properly within the flag standards to display the flags that we wanted. So the solution was to put some flags on the building. Maybe I'm wrong. It's been such a long time.
No, I think, Councillor, you're right. I think we did discuss because you cannot necessarily put two flags on a flagpole where the Canadian flag sits. So we did consider adding standalone flagpoles, but then the idea of having flagpoles tied to our buildings as a solution and a more cost-effective solution as well. So that's what we intend on doing at some of our key sites, is having the Franco-Ontarian flag prominently displayed and not necessarily on a standalone flagpole where it's not feasible to do so. So we've taken that into account, Councillor.
Conseiller Burley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment that was just made. by Councillor Lees stating that the motion was agreed by all to transfer from community project to capital. It was not. It was accepted by a reverse decision of a reverse motion. Thank you.
Conseiller Dan?
Oh, my God.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to the welcome sign, clarify that for me a bit, Steph, because there seems to be two things going on in the community. I was led to believe that somebody had proposed that we'd have a big sign, West Nipissing, across at the lookout, just below the lookout. And are you saying that, well, okay, there's that. And then there was something else that you had stated in another meeting, that it would be similar to the signs that we had in the other communities, because in the other areas of our community, such as Field, Verner, and all that, and that Sturgeon didn't have their sign. So can you clarify? Because I know there seems to be two things floating in the community right now. Some people wanted to put a big, a welcome, bienvenue at the lookout. And then I think in a meeting you said, no, it would be similar to the ones that we had in the other areas. Could you please clarify that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think the original intent, and I think we date back a couple of years now, 2 years after every community had their welcome sign, I think it was brought forth and say, hey, why doesn't Sturgeon have their own sign? And we agreed to do that. That didn't get done last year. And I think the rationale behind having that is branding. So all the communities had the same type of sign. It's a welcome sign to each community. So we wanted to stay on course with that. Now, the community group led by Gail and the Sturgeon Falls Beautification Committee had separate discussions over what they would like to see as far as a sign for Sturgeon Falls, not necessarily West Nipissing, because as you'll recall, Councillor Revita, we do have welcome signs at the four corners of our community. We have the big welcome to West Nipissing signs. So this would be specific to Sturgeon Falls itself. And what the beautification committee had as an idea, which I think is a very good idea, is something similar to what you see in Toronto, Ottawa. A lot of communities now have the community name spelled out. So block by block, letter by letter, they saw that as a vision to have that on the. So now it's council's directive that we're going to follow. That's a community group that has identified an idea that they have, which is a great idea, but from an administration standpoint, we wanted to stay in the branding and have a similar type design by Crimson Pepper type with community consultation to really depict what our residents view as Sturgeon Falls, to highlight that on a billboard sign. So how we move forward, if we can get some direction on that from council as to what you'd like to see, but either way, what we're proposing is a $7,500 a budget line for the Sturgeon Falls welcome sign. And if council wishes for us to look at the lettered portion instead of going with the branding signs, then we'll have to maybe look at what the cost would be to have that done.
Excellent. I really appreciate you clarifying it, because it does make sense what you're saying about the branding. It would be the same as the other ones, and that no. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, and are there any other questions or comments, Councillor Lise?
Well, just a point of clarification. I don't know why that comment came from Councillor Rowley. I think the vote was made and it was defeated to remain the $20,000 and the operation. So that was the question, and we can go on all day and we won't. But I mean, I don't know what's the big deal, because it is operation. Look at 219, garbage can were there, a place that was $7,000 spent on something that was part of capital one time. So I got the paperwork, and I don't know why you want to start on a fee like that for something that decision were made. And because council, I didn't say I said council, there were a vote taken on that. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lise. I did have a few questions, Stéphane. Thank you for the report. And the issue of the sign is clarified because I had those questions. Pertaining to beautification, there's a forecasted amount of 17.5. So is there a formula by which this 17.5 is going to be invested in the various communities of West Nipissing? So for those that are listening to our meeting right now, historically in the past, I know that we had a budget line where everyone was allowed so many dollars for beautification initiatives such as flowers within the community. So between the 17.5, what would be the breakdown for all the communities?
So we don't have, Madam Mayor, we don't have a specific breakdown. I know in the past, Lynn has always worked at distributing those funds as evenly as possible. What we're also seeing though is certain communities have larger groups that are involved as volunteers to help beautify their community. So there's different levels of engagement from community to community. And we've seen committees actually cease and desist in certain communities and uptake in other communities. So Lynn will work with the volunteers that come forth and discuss with her various projects and attempt at implementing their visions and whatnot on a year-to-year basis. So again, we don't have a set policy or a set formula that we work with. We'll generally allocate funds to community groups that come forth that are willing to put the effort and have the vision and have the energy to get it done. But again, if it's council's wish to go even across the board and have a certain formula that you'd like us to apply that to, then that's something we can certainly look at.
Well, okay, my recommendation, I'd like to see some type of formula of how much is allocated per community. This way it really, entice people to step up to the plate and see what kind of initiative that they want to undertake for their community. Because if we just leave it 17.5, you know what? We're putting that in the discretion of what per community. That's the equivalency of $2,500 per community. And a lot of communities are not spending that amount of dollars. They don't even know that they're eligible for any type of dollars in that range. Jay?
Just that those discussions could happen. They're kind of, this is a budgetary discussion. Is the dollar level okay? And then the method of distribution after will be either by need or on a prorated basis. But it really doesn't form part of, that's very much operational at that point. So do you agree with the level, and then you can move on?
I don't disagree with the level, but I definitely would want the assurance that there'd be some prorated formula, which there's an amount allocated per community.
I think I think based on what you're saying, then that needs to come to council for a discussion so that council is comfortable with how it's going to be distributed per community. So if everybody's happy with the level, then the next phase is that the community, once we're ready to disperse those funds, we'll have to come back to council with direction on the method.
Okay, no problem with that, because I see that.
That's operations, yeah.
Well, you know what? I bring it up right now because I can give you an example of how much a community got pertaining to flowers one year based on a request that they made. And I find that it's much lower than the $2,500 or even a portion of that 17.5. So I don't think it's operational. If I'm going to approve the budget, I'd like to have the assurance how much is going to be spread amongst the entire municipality of West Nipissing.
So what you have is 20,000 in the Sturgeon area and 17.5 for the remainder, which is about a good proration. And then, if somebody comes in with a larger project than simply flowers, then, that'll be taken into consideration. But that's a discussion that needs to happen at a later date.
Okay. And
Madam Mayor?
yes, Councillor Elise.
Okay, then I'm confused a little bit because the capital project was a one-shot deal. I think for me, the 17,500 is access to anybody that needed, including the Sturgeon Fall beautification. that line should be, because 1, 2, 3, 4, it's almost together. So the formula for me will be very simple. 50-50 goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then because let's face it, like in the municipal, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the core, and the little bit outside, maybe like Cash Bay might need some of the thing to put and their building, but they should be together. It's a lot bigger than the other one, so you got to be fair, because capital project, the $20,000, it's a capital one-shot deal. I don't think the beautification, Sturgeon Falls beautification, should be punished for that, because it doesn't have anything to do. It's a request they said we should have, and we did approve it. So I think the 17,500, they should have access to that too.
Again,
And,
a discussion for another time.
And I'm not debating that. I'm not saying that a community should be disadvantaged either. It's just,
No.
I was looking at how it could be prorated. And I was trying to make the distinction between community initiatives and community projects. So what would be examples of community initiatives based on what we subsidized last year and what's being proposed for this year in comparison to community projects?
So again, Elisa, feel free to jump in, but I think community initiatives are defined as per some of the free hall allocations that council's provided, some of the rent that council's agreed to pay for Les Filles d'Isabelle, the food bank as well. So those are council approved decisions that basically we have to account for.
Okay,
Even though a free hall is,
Okay.
it doesn't always reflect that, oh, it's costing us out of pocket, but there is a true cost to that. So that community initiatives would account for that.
okay, thank you. And it's true, you had made reference to it at our last meeting. Okay, thank you. Conseiller Burley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I for one agree with what's proposed here, what Stefan has proposed, and if a community did not use their $2,500, but I'm sure that it's going to go into the reserve. So, in general, I agree to it 100%. Thank you.
Okay, but just a point of clarification, Conseiller Burley, I said the $2,500 because I just divided the 75 amongst the 7 communities.
Yeah.
So if there's an expectation that each community is entitled to $2,500, I'd like for the communities to know. Because how are you going to apply for a project if you don't know that you're eligible, to tap into funding? But as our CEO mentioned, that will come back at council for further discussion on how it could be prorated, if everyone's in agreement to that.
Yep.
Everyone's in agreement to that? Okay, perfect. So that will come back. So I'll pass it back to you, Stéphane. So if you want to walk us through, Conseiller Dan?
I think that there's been a little bit of a mix-up here. The 20,000 that we allocated to the sturgeon beautification, the total amount that they wanted, because they don't need flowers and they don't need mulches. That's what they requested for this year. So as Councillor Lee said, the money should be divided up for the other money should be divided up for the other communities. And again, this is an operational issue, and I don't know why we're getting stuck on this. So thank you.
Okay, before proceeding with capital project, there's no confusion. Everyone agreed that we're supporting the Sturgeon Falls Community Beautification Committee with the capital project of 20,000 for the garbage can. On est tous d'accord là-dessus. L'autre montant, le 17 500 $, qui est pour des initiatives, des projets communautaires, je crois, j'ai soulevé le point que ce 17 500 $-là, on devrait avoir une formule de combien qui est attribué par communauté pour qu'on puisse aviser nos communautés. J'ai entendu, oui, qu'on devrait adopter un genre de formule pour qu'on puisse partager avec nos communautés respectives qu'il y a des argents disponibles pour des initiatives communautaires. And I heard yes on that, but that will come at a future date at committee level. So I'll pass it on to you, Stéphane, if you want to walk us through the capital facilities and capital projects.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we start with capital equipment on page 8 of your capital budget workbook?
Sure.
And then we'll follow that up with facilities.
Perfect.
So on
Thank you.
page 8, you've got community services fleet 2021. We have 2 pickup trucks that are required for the department. We had one approved by council last year, and we did not proceed with it. We did go through an RFP, and we did get submission. However, they weren't able to meet our requirements. I guess with COVID and manufacturing plants shut down, it was very difficult to obtain the exact vehicle with the features that we required. And paired that with no maintenance summer students last year, we were able to complete the year with one less vehicle in the mix. Now, moving to 2021, we are also needing that one vehicle repaired or replaced. And we're adding a second 4x4 pickup truck because there's one that's prohibitive to repair and being removed from our fleet. And with having a new subforeman position, and we're anticipating having staff come back or part-time maintenance, and also having the ability to hire summer students because we're expecting a busier summer, hopefully, that we absolutely require 2 pickup trucks to be part of our fleet circulation.
So before I ask if there's any questions, Stefan, the RFP process and the difficulty challenge of getting exactly the vehicles that we want. So what's the solution to that? Do we have to go out of town, or are we going to be able to acquire the vehicles locally?
No, I think we'll be able to reissue an RFP and get our local dealerships to work with us. I think that if we go early enough in the process and we issue the RFP for 2 pickup trucks, that we feel comfortable that we will be able to get our needs met by our hopefully our local dealerships. Yeah.
Okay, are there any questions from members of council? Aucune question? None? And the one that needs to be decommissioned, relatively what age or how old is the vehicle?
I believe one's a 2008, Madam Mayor, the other one's
Okay.
a 2009. I'd have to reconfirm that, but they're
Okay.
fairly they're aged vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Chris?
Just a general question about our fleet. Do we sort of go with one brand like Ford or GMC and is there an opportunity to sort of single source a brand and maybe make a deal with them with that particular outlet for long-term maintenance if we single source vehicles? Just a thought.
First, again, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe our procurement policy allows us to do that. And secondly, we basically, when we issue an RFP, we issue an RFP based on what we need in a vehicle. And all makes can generally provide those meet our needs as far as equipment and whatnot. So it's not something since I've been here that's been considered as far as going to one brand. So every dealership has an opportunity.
Yeah,
And-
no, basically put the benefits of sole sourcing. This isn't one that has an intricacy where you want to form a partnership. It's like buying a widget.
Conseiller Dan?
Thank you. This may sound like a stupid question, but it seems that the vehicles are all, seems to be, and it might be navy blue, they may be another color, but it seems we're going with the same color. Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
And
that's
what
part of our RFP. We specify the color, the equipment required. And yeah, our RFPs are very specific. And again, we were trying as much as possible to stick with the same color. So we're recognizable and it's part of branding as well.
what color is it, Steph?
Our pickup trucks are blue.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I thought they were purple. Okay, they're good.
So are there Any further questions, Councillor Lise?
So if I got it correctly, it's 65,000 times 2 because you need 2 truck. Is that the amount you're asking?
It's 55 times 2, Council.
Okay,
for
okay, it's because
110,000.
okay, on page 8, it was 65 for one, so, okay, so, and Alicia, I don't know if she's there, but is it part of the,
Just a point of clarification, Councillor Lise, the 65,000, that's under Public Works
Works.
fleet.
yeah,
We're looking at the community services fleet, which is the third column down. Identified
okay,
as
it's not- wow, okay.
55,000 each.
my mistake, I thought we were talking about
No,
public
yeah.
work.
No,
Okay.
that's okay. I just want to clarify. Now you
Okay,
wanted
now,
to get-
yeah, okay, I got it, so it's only 65 in public work and 55 in community services.
Yeah, and
So you were-
the reason for that is because Public Works generally go with 3/4 ton pickup trucks, and for our purposes, we go with 1/2 ton pickup trucks.
Okay,
And you wanted to direct or ask a question to our Director of Corporate Services, Alyssa?
no, it's okay, I don't need to do that now.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Alicia.
On procède avec la prochaine page, numéro 9, Capital Facilities.
Okay,
Okay.
Conseil Lise?
okay, so we're talking about trucks. Are we saying that we don't talking about anything else, that we approve everything that's been proposed? Because we only talk about 2 trucks.
Well, we're not done yet. We're proceeding with everything else as far as projects. The next page, which is Capital Facilities for Community Services.
Okay, I'm completely mixed up. Okay. So, okay,
So if I may, Madam Mayor, I'll walk you through the list, and I'll do my best to explain so that everyone understands what we're doing here as far as carrying over projects from 2021 or from 2020 to 2021, and some of the proposed changes we're doing from the original 2020 list. So if you look at the top portion of the list for community services, we've got carried over from 2020. So the first line item is the field outdoor rink. As you all recall, it's been ongoing, and it's not to the community's fault and the volunteers that this has not happened. COVID obviously put a damper on that project last year. The committee weren't able to continue their fundraising efforts, but there's still some partnership dollars attached to this project. We had originally applied for a grant, I believe, and weren't successful in obtaining it. That being said, for that project to move forward, we've increased the originally allocated budget that council approved last year. We were at $90,000 cash and some in kind as well. After having said that, we're now recommending $150,000 towards that project. There's been increases in cost for material and whatnot. And we're also looking at what the committee is hoping for as far as the makeup of this project. And the 150 would basically cover most of the costs associated to dismantling the existing infrastructure at the field outdoor rink and building a new set of boards and new lights and whatnot, similar to what we've done in other outdoor rink facilities. Now, our partnership money with the Caisse Populaire and the fundraising efforts from the municipality would have to make up the shortfall pertaining to costs associated to the cover that the community is hoping to get over the outdoor rink. That being said, the 150 would help partner with the rest of the funds to hopefully be able to do it like the committee would hope. There's still a bit more of investigation to do. We're working with an architect to really come up with 2021 numbers to see if we're within the ballpark or not. But what I can tell council right now is the 150 would cover the cost of our municipal infrastructure existing to replace it and build brand new boards and new lights for that facility. So if we go down to page 10, there's one line item that says deferred 2021 community services facility. Part of your approved 2020 budget last year, we had allocated 101,000 to Cache Bay Outdoor Rink has 2 smaller rinks within the old tennis court. And I'm dating myself because a lot of people don't even know we used to have a tennis court there. And we said we dismantled the smaller outdoor rinks and build one. We're proposing deferring that project to 2022. Reason being is we put some money in it last year to fix all the rotted boards, and it's actually in better shape than we originally anticipated because of the maintenance work we did. And we feel very strongly with the fact that we can certainly have another outdoor rink season out of that infrastructure in Cache Bay. So essentially we're recommending that we defer that to 2022 and reallocate a bit of funds to increase our budget for the field rink to see it to completion. Another project that was deferred from what was originally planned last year is the Werner Fitness Center. I think we all know why. We've also slightly increased that from 45 to 55, I believe, again, because of increase in costs that we're anticipating. Another project that we deferred was the town hall roof replacement. We had it patched last year. We're hoping once the budget's approved to go to an RFQ or RFP and get a contractor to come in and properly fix that one section that is required for maintenance and repairs. Playgrounds is another one. We had 75,000 earmarked last year for Piet Street, Janin Street, LeBlanc Road, safety issues and improvements to those 3 parks. They were closed for most of the year last year. We had assessments done on them about 2.5 years ago, and we'd like to move forward with those repairs and upgrades at those 3 facilities. Now you'll see also, if we can move into 2021, I'll stay on the playground theme. We're recommending, and again, when we compile these lists of infrastructure, there's certain things that we absolutely need for the day-to-day operation of our facilities. We also look at what we need as far as risk management and safety is concerned. And then we also take into account community input and obviously what's being discussed during council meetings. And one thing that was brought forth last year was the relocation of the field playground. So as you all know, it's located right on Highway 64. And it's kind of isolated away from more densely populated areas of our community. So what we're recommending is that we take a lot of the good existing playground equipment and relocate it on another parcel of land that the municipality would own within the community that would be more accessible and more safety conscious for the young families to enjoy. The other proposed project that was included as part of our 2021 capital list is a new playground in Living. This was put into our budget even beforehand, before the community group came up to council and said we'd like some support on a funding application that we're submitting. We had already earmarked, because we knew that this was brought forth, I believe last year or maybe even the year before, that Living would really like a new or not a new, but a playground in the community. So we earmarked 75,000 for the construction of a new playground. Now, that being said, if you look at the projects that were brought forth from last year and you include, if council would approve the list as is, we'd have the 3 playgrounds that were deferred from last year to this year, relocation of the field playground, and a new playground in Living. Then what we'd do is we'd issue an RFP to playground equipment companies and have probably economies of scale, because we'd be doing 3-4 larger scale playground projects. And we'd work with one supplier, one contractor to get all of these done within our various communities. The last section of our capital list is our accessibility AODA projects. You did receive a presentation recently from our West Nipissing Accessibility Committee. There's been extensive work done within our building condition assessments, and we feel very strongly to be able to meet the 2025 timelines by the province that we really need to concentrate and do some AODA projects and enhance and improve our accessibility to our facilities. So we're proposing town hall. We have work that needs to be done for our main entrance for it to be conforming with the act. We also have some work to do at our front counter as well. We've got work to be done at the recreation center, and these are all identified projects within our building condition assessments. And we're looking at additional parking spaces, and completing a lot of the assessment, the work that's been identified in these assessments. We're also looking at spending some accessibility funds at the Cache Bay Community Center and the Vernon Municipal Building as well. So this would be a really good start. We have to do some every year to be able to, again, be compliant by 2025. And this is very important work that we will need to address on a yearly basis. So if you add all of the project costs identified for 2021, we're at 990 plus the 110,000 for the 2 vehicles. We're looking at an investment of $1.1 million in capital projects this year as proposed through through the list you have in front of you.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor. I see that Conseiller Liu had his hand up for quite a while, but just a point of clarification here, Stéphane. The projects carried over from 2020. When we look at the playground, the upgrades for Janin Street, LeBlanc Road, and Piet Street, those were pre-approved budget in 2020.
Correct.
The others were not pre-approved budget. So I just want to make the distinction between both.
No.
And that the difference in the pre-approved budget, I believe, for the 3 playgrounds for Janin, LeBlanc, and Piet in 2020 was 75,000. Now it's 85.
Yeah.
So why would there be an additional $10,000 required from last year?
We actually increased all the line items that were deferred from last year to this year because of the increase in cost of material and whatnot. There's been substantial increase. Some will say, anywhere from 20 to 40% increase in material and labor. So we have had to adjust. If not, we're going to be short. We're going to see some shortfalls. So we've adjusted every deferred project to reflect 2021 estimated numbers.
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Liu?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Stéphane, when you do the renovations for accessibility, do you take in consideration for the COVID at the same time?
I'm not
Like
sure I'm
safety?
following, Councillor. What would you be suggesting that is required for COVID?
No, I mean like the plexiglass and whatever when you talk about the counters and all that stuff.
Yeah, so the counters all have plexiglass where we're serving the public. It's all been retrofitted to meet standards for COVID. What we're talking is lowering our counter to have a section of the counter so we can serve people in wheelchairs and whatnot. So when we're talking accessibility and lowering the counter space would be to meet those needs.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Conseiller Denis?
Just one question here. Didn't we get a grant there, Stéphane, for the humidifier and the heat exchange for 200,000?
We've applied for one. We haven't received anything yet. So
I thought you had brought it up to council that we did receive or there was a grant there for 200,000 for upgrades there. So
yeah,
not sure why it's on here.
So we had originally come to council saying we've received notice that that they will allocate money for certain projects and to identify a project. That being said, we still need the official approval. So we did meet their requirement. We did submit our information prior to the timeline, but it still needs to form part of our capital. If we do end up getting a grant, that will certainly cover the cost of that project associated. But until we receive written notice that we are officially getting that money, and at least unless we have received it, we have to assume that this is being funded by council.
If I may, just on that subject matter, Conseiller Denis, and just a point of clarification, we did get notification that we're awarded 263,000. What we need to find out is if they accept the project that we submitted on how we'd like to spend that money. Is that the same program funding that we're talking about?
So that is correct. So they said, you know, it was a really strange rollout of funding. You know, everyone's going to get this funds depending on the size of the municipality, but you have to actually, though the money was there, you actually still had to apply for your project. So our project was in, it needs a dual approval from the province and from the federal government. They had originally said the timelines were approvals will probably come back in March. My experience with those dual approvals is that they tend to be later than that. But if that project doesn't get approved, the money is not there. Well, the money is tied to that application to that project. So
Okay.
it's a really unusual situation what they did with that funding.
Okay, thank you. Conseiller Denis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is this issue was not an emergency or was not on the table until we got the grant. But we got the grant, that's fine. We'll wait for the answer. But why would we put it in our budgets when it's not even, wasn't in our scope, let's say? Just the only reason it's in our scope is because we had that grant. So if we don't get the grant, the job doesn't get done. But why would we put it in the expenses at 200,000 right away?
But to answer your question, Councillor, if the grant is not approved, that is one of the priority projects that we're still going to recommend that we absolutely have to get done in 2021. That is a facility issue that we need to address. So if that funding does not come through, that project will still remain as a high priority.
Okay, I wasn't aware because before we received the grant application, it was not on the radar. And that's why I'm bringing that up. Thank you.
Yeah, you're correct, Councillor. It's just that through our building condition assessment, that was one of our high priority. So it didn't make it to last year's because we didn't have the condition assessment report yet. But that's certainly part of the documentation we've received from the engineers that this needs to be fixed.
Conseiller Dan?
Thank you. Steph, just in regards to the playgrounds, I know it's a necessity, and I totally agree that Living should get a playground because they're the only ones that don't have one. And my question is this: in the event that I know that we're going to put the 75,000 towards it, in the event that the grant application is accepted, what happens with the money from the grant?
So again, if the project were to be approved for funding, and I'd like to sit with the committee itself because I haven't had the opportunity to do so. They have provided all the information on what they're requesting and not. But so let's say they get 100% funding for this new playground in Living, and we can in fact cover the installation costs, the site prep, and all the equipment, installation, everything. And then the 75,000, and then they can get the playground that they absolutely wanted with 100% funding from the province or feds. Then we would that money stays in our capital reserve for future use and for future projects. If we go through the process and we find out that we need more money than they initially requested, then we could always go into that 75,000 to have that project properly completed. And whatever remaining funds would go back into capital reserve for community services for future years.
Jay?
To add to that, there are potentially other options. And typically, we're not trying to over budget here, but we have to have the monies available for what we're planning on doing. If we get additional monies elsewhere and it's early enough, then council also has the ability to redirect. So let's say we get approval for the humidifier and stuff like that. Then if we get that soon, then we can go back to council, or it could stay in the reserve. But there are some options. If we get it too late, then we can't initiate a new project.
Okay. Now,
Excuse me.
Conseiller Rowley?
Yes, Steph, have you also looked at those grants that you could acquire from the group called Let Them Be Kids, like they've done here in River Valley? they've given a lot of money on this.
Our last experience with that program, counselor, was when Cache Bay were looking at their playground. They started the process. It's a very lengthy process. It's sometimes restrictive. And then Cache Bay came to the conclusion that it's just not something they wanted to pursue. I know Let Them Be Kids were involved in the playground at L'École Saint-Joseph, the new school on Michaud Street. And there were some challenges there too. I'm not saying that it's not the proper funding agency to go through, but it's certainly not the easiest. And so we would basically look at funding it from the municipality, because if we were to try to go through Let Them Be Kids, none of this would certainly get done in 2021, that's for sure.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Yvonne?
Madame Mairesse. Question to you, Steph. Complex pool dehumidifier and heat exchanger. And you know, I know the unit is there, it's not worth anything, but is $200,000 enough?
Yeah, we've had it analyzed by through the building condition assessment, and the budget provided should be enough. Again, until we go through the tendering process, we're never sure, but we feel that we've put enough money in there to complete that project for this year. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And the other question, if I may, I'm primarily concerned with the LeBlanc Road playground equipment. Obviously, the equipment there is obsolete. The only probably good thing there is maybe the swing. But it's the location of the playground that I'm worried about. And we had spoken that we would probably move it from behind the garage and put it in an area where it's visible to other people, so that if and when children are there, they can be observed in some way. And of course, we can bring this up at the council for further discussion, but I am deeply concerned because of the closeness of the bush area and behind the little garage there. And we could, again, there's some land there that we could sell with regards to availability. And with the playground on the back end of it, there would be a problem to, I guess, divide certain lands to be able to sell some parcels. Is that, have you thought of that, Steph? Or
what we can do, Councillor, is if council agrees, what we can do when we release the tender or the RFP for our playgrounds, what we can do is ask the bidders to give us option A is the cost of upgrading the equipment on the exact site where it's at now, and a second option would be what they would charge us to move the equipment that's still in a usable state and adding new equipment to a different location on our site to make it closer to the road, so it's more visible for people using it. We could ask that, and if it does come a bit over, we can come back to council and say, do you want to invest in that? Or if we can do it within the allocated amount, then we could look at maybe making that park a little bit more visible so that people feel safer when they're using it. That could be an option if council wishes.
thank you.
Councillor Chris?
So I just had a question about the Bernard Fitness Center. That's not that's for the building itself, right? Regardless of if it's a fitness center or not. And I just want to mention, and I've said this, I think I've said this at every budget, that I conceptually have a problem with the municipality being in the fitness business, because we do compete with private benches. And I realize there's not one in Vernon at the moment, but there's no incentive to put one there either, because the municipality is running one. And the same goes for Sturgeon Falls. There are fitness centers in Sturgeon Falls, and we're running a competitive business, basically. So just exactly what that $55,000 is for? Thank you.
So if I may, Madam Mayor, to answer your question, what does that cover? So we had, we were looking at relocating, because right now it's upstairs at the arena, and it's not really.
Okay, thank you. I remember now. I'd forgotten.
So we would basically convert a classroom at the municipal building into our new fitness center. So it's easy, it's better accessibility to our folks. It's safer to the folks using it. And that's what that money would be used to transform a section of that building into a fitness center.
Thank you.
Is it possible to find out exactly what the work is entailed or proposed with relocating of the equipment from upstairs, the arena, to a room at the Werner building? Like, I mean, we're
Yeah.
putting down, the amount that's forecasted for that project, Werner Municipal, sorry, the fitness center, 55, last year was 40. So we're looking at relocating the equipment, which is one. What work is required at the Werner building to be able to take one room and put the equipment there?
So without going into too much detail, what we were looking at is not just simply relocating equipment, is basically putting a floor that will basically be conducive to a fitness center. We've got lighting, we've got, I think in back of these classrooms, they have closets that would need to be dismantled. There's substantial amount of work. There's electrical work required to be able to plug in the ellipticals and the treadmills and whatnot. So there's a substantial amount of construction work required to convert one of these classrooms into a usable space for the use of a fitness area.
Okay, and from what was proposed last year to this year, we're looking at $15,000 more?
Yes.
Because we're anticipating that the construction material is more expensive, or labor, or a combination of both?
Combination of both, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Chris, Councillor Yvon, Councillor Alice.
Okay, so I'm gonna play a dangerous game here, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So just remind me, Steph, how many full-time memberships do we have for that gym? I think you said it's 18, if I remember correctly.
Well, that, Councillor, I think you're correct, but that was towards the latter part of when the gym operated. We have seen larger numbers, but they fluctuate. Like Sturgeon Falls Fitness Center fluctuates as well. But before lockdown, before we shut things down, I think we had 18 full-time members. You're correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Yvon.
Thank you, Madame Mayoress. Just to help you along here, Madame Mayoress, to give you an idea is the cost of material. Last year when I bought a 2x4, it was $3, and today it's $10.50, and that's 1 year. I bought a plywood yesterday. I paid $72.50. I bought the same plywood last spring, and I paid $22.50. So that's in material. It's unreal. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that. And yes, I was aware of it, but it just seemed like, when you put a number attached to converting a room, it seemed an excessive amount of, when you're looking at $55,000 to convert one room to put fitness equipment in that room. So that's the reason I was questioning that. Councillor Alice.
Okay, I do have a few questions, and I'm trying to start at the beginning. Okay, the playground, not the playground, but the complex pool dehumidifier exchange. I don't think it should be there because correct me if I'm wrong, Alicia, I think there's grant money that if we don't get that one, that would be, that we would be able to take to cover that.
So as we mentioned earlier, that grant money is not confirmed yet. And as Steph indicated, this project is a project that needs to go ahead. Whether or not that grant money is received, it was identified in our facility review as being a critical project. So it does need to go on his capital list. If we are successful with that grant funding, then as Jay expressed, then the money sort of stays in capital reserve and we can apply the grant funding to it.
Okay, the second one, the field rink, okay? Well, when you're talking about the $150,000 to redo the rink and the board and the lighting and to put a roof, so that's mean 150 plus the $45,000 we had in reserve. That was the first year in 1999 when for the budget that was approved that we had it there. I think it was previous to that, 218. If I'm because I don't think we approve $45,000 after, and $100,000 from the Caisse Populaire. So we're talking about 250, almost $300,000. What they were saying that was just for the roof at the beginning. I remember last year that was the roof itself was costing $300,000. And at that point of time, I think we had requested to see if there were other options because they mentioned it was the Cadillac of the roof and there might be some other options. So I'm wondering where is that stand for? Because that was what directed to, I think it was you, Stefan, last year to go and look at option. So really, it's really when you look at previous year, I mean, it's all of a sudden it's $300,000 for all the project. And then last year was simply the roof that we're mentioning, that we're covering the roof. And I don't understand because I heard there's been an announcement and we know that Lavigne had applied for a grant and there's a few announcements that we made in the next few weeks about the federal grant. And correct me, Madam Mayor, because I think you had mentioned that also from different municipalities. So why can we did not apply for anything? Because it was federal money for COVID for infrastructure. So that's my question as far as applying for those things, because right now we're going through and we're almost at the end of capital project and we're approving everything like if money was coming out of everywhere. And I think we need to look at some of the project and go by priority because I don't agree that to spend all that money. I personally, excuse me, obviously, I'm just one vote, but is Jay trying to talk to us because his mouth, his speaker is, I don't know.
I think he might be on a call.
Okay.
If I can, Madam Mayor, I just want to clarify that although the Caisse Populaire were contributing towards a roof for the rink, it's always been the intent that the rink boards are beyond their life expectancy and we're always going to be changed. And that's municipalities' cost towards that project. So it's not just about putting a roof over the old rink boards because the rink boards are beyond their life expectancy. We need new rink boards. And because we'd be putting a cover over it, we'd look at new lighting because you can't use the existing lighting there. We have applied for a grant for that specific project and we're turned down.
I'm talking lately, Stefan. I know you did.
But you're absolutely right, Councillor. There are new programs that have been identified. What I propose once we have an approved amount by council so we know what we're bringing to that project budget would be to go back and sit down with our architect that looks at costs and with the committee as a whole and look at options because originally they were looking at a wood structure. Then we went from wood to a coverall plastic building or a tarped building, I should say, to reduce some of the cost. But again, we're 3 years into that initial project and costs have escalated. So I think if council could look at least covering the cost of board replacements and lighting, I can go back with architects, the local committee, look at funding options if they do meet criteria and applying for grants if that's the case, and then look at the final makeup of what that project's going to look like to see what we can and can't do with the money that we have on hand right now.
Can I pursue with my question, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, so again, Stefan, I'm all mixed up because last year, like I said, we did not talk about the board. We're talking about the roof. So you're saying right now that the $150,000 is for what? Is it for board, the rink, or it's for the everything? Because that's what you said.
If we can, we would leverage our money and the Caisse Populaire money and the fundraising money to try to get the entire project completed. But again, I don't think that in 2021 numbers that we can fit the entire project with the amount being even tabled right now. So, but we do need to eventually change the boards and change the lighting because they're at that stage in their life cycle. So we're recommending 150. And that being said, if council approves that, then we sit down, like I said, with the architects and the committee and look at new numbers and final options to see what the final makeup of that project will be so we can get it completed.
So what happened to the $45,000 that was in reserve? It goes
So
towards
it's
what?
actually, I think council approved 45 2 years ago, and we had increased that to by another 45 last year, which was approved.
Oh.
So we originally had, I believe, 90 towards that project. Now that number is being recommended to go to 150 to at least get the boards and the lights in place.
Plus that would include the $90,000 that we already had in reserve.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that you're
So-
talking about a $240,000 project for the ring.
No. The 90 is included in that, Councillor.
Hey?
The 90 is included in that. What we're asking is 150 total.
So, okay, but
May I ask just a point of clarification, just to make sure before we proceed on to the next one? So when we had 45,000, I believe, in 218 that was approved because the KAIS gave 100, so that was 145. Now, last year we approved another 45,000 for the roof rink.
Yes.
I wasn't aware. I thought it had been removed from
Yeah.
the projects.
Oh, it was removed at the time where we had to scale back on projects because of COVID, where we cut the beach project, the fitness center project.
Well, so if I may, as far as committed funds, for sure, committed. I know that we committed and Conseiller Rowley was there at the time, and I believe Conseiller Yvon. We committed 45,000 to be able to ensure that the group and field would be eligible for the 100,000 donation from La Caisse Populaire. Now, last year, did we commit 45,000? Did we approve 45,000 in our budget line, or was it cut and eliminated from the budget line? I thought it was eliminated. I could be wrong. Alyssa?
It was removed at the COVID go around.
Okay, so right now, as far as hard commitment, we have 45,000. And my recommendation is historically, just to make sure that we don't lose that hard commitment, my recommendation would be that that 45,000, if it's not spent this year, that is, we should dedicate it as a specific reserve, because that money has been committed by a previous council and is being carried over and designated for a project. And I would hope that whatever the outcome of this budget, that 45,000, if it's not spent this year, that we have a dedicated reserve to reflect that there's $45,000 in the bank sitting for that project in field. Would that be doable?
I guess anything's doable if council agrees to that, but I
Okay,
just to try to avoid, there seems to be a bit of confusion here. So we took every project that we provided from last year, and that question was asked, why are we from 40 to 55 for the Werner Fitness Center? Why are we from 75 to 85 for playgrounds? Well, this is no different. This was an initiative that was originally approved by council, yes, at a lesser amount. We doubled that amount last year to 90, and now we're going even higher and recommending, if we're going to have any chance of completing this project, we're advising council, recommending the council to invest 150,000 towards this, so that we can at least look at possibly completing the project this
Yeah.
year.
and I commend you for bringing that forward, because it's been an ongoing project that council had previously committed even before this council. But I just wanted a point of clarification, because so far, hard dollars committed is 45,000. And we have not committed any additional funds so far. But what's being proposed is that provide the 150 plus provide the 45 that was not approved last year. Is that what is being recommended this year, or just?
We're recommending 150 total
Okay,
towards this
okay.
project.
And going on Councillor Lee's, and I'm just clarifying here, we were notified, initially it was 100 Lacais, 45 the municipality. Then the group in field would be doing some fundraising, which they started, and maybe due to COVID, they stopped. And then they also applied, I believe, was it for the Trillium funding?
Yes.
And then we got a response because the Trillium funding application was done by the municipality. We got a response that did not qualify. At that moment, I believe Councillor Chris and yourself were meeting with the group in field, Fred, to discuss the future planning at this project with an update to council. But we didn't get an update from that moment on. And there's possibly some funding, and Trillium has expanded on their funding. And there's also the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, which is now available. So we're asking the municipality to contribute 150, but without having a firm plan presented to council. Is that what we're asking?
Well, it's not that we don't have a firm plan for council, is I think at this point, because of everything that's been happening, these new grant programs have just recently been announced. So NOHFC has just recently been announced. Grant, I think Trillium was last week. So this is an evolving story here. So what we're saying is we basically based our initial capital budget on what we knew. Now, obviously things are evolving, they're changing. There's new granting programs that consider recreation projects as now being eligible for funding. So we can certainly look at that. But I think the next step is looking at our initial budget to determine the new costs of building that facility. But what we're saying here is if we can't get grant money and the money we have on hand currently is insufficient, to at least commit money to build the rink boards and the lighting, because it needs to be replaced sooner than later. Now, if council directs us to take a step back, to meet with the committee, look at if council wants to prioritize this project so that we apply for funding for it as a recreational priority, then we can do all of the above. But we had to provide council with a capital budget, which we've done, and now it's my understanding that there's money potentially out there.
Okay.
The other risk, if I just want to point out, like we did initially when we did apply for Trillium, is that we apply, the granting process is sometimes lengthy, and we could completely lose another construction season to get anything done at that site. And if we're declined, then we're back at square one. But on the other hand, if we do apply and we are successful, the community and field could potentially get everything they've asked for and envision for this project if we're able to secure funding from the province on that project.
Conseiller Burley, Conseiller Chris.
Thank you. So to take us back, we had, you're right, Madam Mayor, we had committed 45. I think it's in 2018. And then last year, we had also said 45. COVID hit, we took it off the shelves. So actually, if it wouldn't have been for COVID, last year, we would have be up to 90. Now you're asking 150. So actually, you're asking 60 more than what we had agreed upon in the previous years. So I say, let's go for it. Let's give field, and it's an asset for West Nipissing. It's not, field will benefit from it, but also West Nipissing. It's a value for us. So I say, let's guarantee that money for field. Let's get it done. There's a good group of volunteers there and they need encouragement. So I say, let's go for it. It's the same thing as the Lavigne playground. If we say, well, let's apply for grants, then Lavigne will not get a playground this year. So let's guarantee the money so Lavigne could get a playground and field could get their rink.
Well,
Thank
right
you.
now, okay, so, but just a point of clarification, Conseiller Burley, 45,000 was not approved last year. It was removed from the budget, okay? So I just want to make sure that's clear because the question was asked and I want to avoid any nuance. Councillor Chris?
So yeah, just a couple of things. Yes, we took one for the team last year because it was COVID and, nobody complained. But I just want to say, so Elk Lake, just got funding for from both levels of government. And so basically the municipality is in for 168, and then the feds 252, and then Ontario government 210. And so, you know, there are other avenues of funding we can apply for, and we're in good standing, you know, the community. We have raised quite a bit of money as a small community. So the commitment of these funds really helps to go after the bigger funds, because if you know, we tick all the boxes with these funds, and we can get it done no matter what. Thanks.
But what's the cost of the project? Well, I don't think no one at council was informed what was the actual cost for the project to get the roof done.
Yeah, we had originally estimated it because they went from a wood structure to a coverall building. We had estimated it was going to be around 330,000. But then everything's changed. And then the committee also started looking into the possibility of having a cement or asphalt floor, I guess, so that it could be used 12 months out of the year. So that will need to be brought into the equation and look at costing at that. So I think that there's still some investigation to be done as far as final budgets and what we can and can't move forward with that budget.
Conseil Lise?
So Stéphane, how much just for the board and repair the rink and the lighting for next winter?
I think it's beyond repair, so we'd have to basically remove the existing.
Okay, so how much would it cost just for that?
That we think that replacing boards and new lighting would be around 150.
One what?
150,000.
So the rest would be covered by the, okay. Well, I don't think we can spend that money personally this year, because COVID is still there, and we don't even know if we're going to get into a third wave, and we are at the end of March. So that's my saying right now. I'm going to talk about the same as to pay $75,000 to change the playground's place. I got a question on that. Is the lot owned by the municipality, I'm assuming too? So if there's a playground there, so Jake or Alicia or Stéphane, maybe, I don't know. Is the lot that the playground is belong to the municipality right now under the name?
Which playground, Conseil?
Yes.
And field.
Yeah, the
Okay.
playground and field is on our site,
Okay.
and we would be moving it to another site that we own.
Okay, so, and one in Lavigne, obviously, they apply for the grant, and again, I think they failed because, like I said, and today or yesterday, they were, not yesterday, but today they were announcement about money provided, and maybe Lavigne got their announcement also. But I don't think they were asking in the letter. I think they want maybe the difference. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Conseiller Denis, maybe you know about it. And but there's been $25,000 at some point allocated for a playground in Lavigne if they could get some funding. And last year, I think they were an offer to put more money, but there were nobody that could take upon the project, and that's why it was not concrétisé, le projet. So can somebody ask my question about the $25,000? Because I think right now feel pretty sure to secure their funding, but they might need a little bit of extra for something. So Conseiller Denis, I don't know.
Well, I saw that Conseiller Denis has his hand up because you were asking a question about the $25,000 for the playground in Lavigne. Conseiller Denis?
Well, as far as I know, since I've been counselor, the first thing I heard was that there was some sort of agreement. I guess it was a verbal agreement between the town and the CCL that the town would match their $25,000 if they were ever able to raise $25,000. So I guess that is sort of written in the rules that we should have our $25,000, even if we can't. And that's what I brought up to the meeting last year, was that for a community like Lavigne to raise $25,000 is a big issue. It'll never get done. I think we were up to about 10,000. So then I did mention it at the meeting, and I think there was approval or this for that. And but the issue comes from far back. I think Madam Mayor and other councillors that were there earlier, maybe Jay, that there was an agreement, sort of.
I believe, Conseil Denis, in the first quarter of 2018, there was a presentation from the executive members of the CCL to council. They had identified one of their projects being a playground for the community of Lavigne. They made a proposal to council of the day that they were looking at a contribution of 25,000 from the municipality, but they weren't expecting that the project be subsidized at 100% through tax dollars, that they were contemplating on doing fundraising and to be able to get matching dollars from the municipality up to 25,000. So that's the scoop in 2018. Now, in the last month, we got a request from the CCL president asking us to endorse their project for a multi-use playground near the outdoor rink in Lavigne, and made reference on the letter that if council could provide some seed dollars to leverage in the event, but they weren't expecting any money. But they did identify that they had some monies in reserve through the CCL, but if the municipality could allocate a small amount in the event that it would be required to assist with the installation if successful with the application. So in a nutshell, you got an update for both issues. Conseil Denis?
I think, Madam Mayor, that the intent has always been that Lavigne would receive 25,000 for the playground. That's sort of the intent. And when they applied for this grant, it was a quick situation. They only had about 2 weeks, so they didn't really look at the financial issues. But I think we're still relying on that 25,000.
So are you recommending that since we have 75,000 that we it would be acceptable to decrease that line to 25,000 to ensure that Lavigne has funds in the bank set aside for this project if they're successful with the funding?
If you want me to ask for, if you want me to ask for less, I don't know if I'll get crucified. But technically, I think the 25,000 would do the job. If everybody wants to compromise on the 6.67, I'm willing to compromise also at our end. So somebody, we have to move down somehow.
Okay, thank you for that information. Conseil Dan?
I tend to agree with that comment, Madam Mayor, because the point is that Lavigne doesn't have a playground, and the thing is if we bring them down to 25,000, we could compromise them not getting their playground this year. And the thing is that what staff has done, they've done it very well. They've allocated funds that are necessary to put a playground in Lavigne and do the other projects that they want to do around playgrounds. So by asking Councillor Denis to go for just 25,000, what you're doing is you're putting in jeopardize their whole point of getting a playground and having the one in field fixed or moved, and having the Jan and Pitt and Pete and LeBlanc done. So I think we're going down a pretty slippery slope on this one. I think we should just allow it, and then if they get the grant money, then we can put it into reserves.
It's not Conseil Dan, it's not a slippery slope. We are dealing with projects, and we're talking about prioritizing which project within the budget that's been identified of $1 million based on tax dollars. Conseil Chris?
So I know we discussed this briefly before, but just to save a few dollars and maybe use reserves on the, so we do have $34,000 in the playground reserve. Perhaps we might want to apply that to the $85,000 line or whatever, and just saying that that's come from developers and we built it up over time, we could apply that money.
And there was also a proposal that dedicated reserve was generated by development, and that the development was in the core area of the municipality, and there was a recommendation that maybe the streetlights, the lamp posts can be purchased from that dedicated reserve.
I just need to clarify that, and Mel would probably have more detail if we needed, but that money is for playgrounds and parks. It's not for lights on streets.
That's correct.
So that money cannot be used whatsoever for any improvement, local improvement within the core downtown.
No.
It has to be used on playgrounds.
Okay.
So then,
Conseillère Lise?
well, then why don't we put that money towards the Piet, the playground repairs? That would be $35,000 less to that we can cut on that part, because like I said, we need to cut somewhere, because I'm not agreeing with to 6.8 increase. So we have to try to figure out something, and we're still in COVID, and we're not over COVID. And I mean, so we got to be responsible. And I'm not expecting that. I think Lavigne, like I said, I'm not going to say more than that. So.
Conseiller Yvon?
Madam Menace, we're discussing the budget, and I realize the projects that are put forward to us, and that's fine and dandy, but I am not going to agree to over 6%. And I'm working between 2 and 3. So take that and bring it to the bank all you want. That's where I'm working. So discuss all you want. Thank you very much.
Okay. Jay?
I say it every year, but you know, the fact that we present something doesn't, there's a variety of ways of getting there. We're parking issues that were discussed, whether they're not 100% reachable or whatever, but there are ways that, you know, that we have with surpluses and with everything to get the number down. I wouldn't necessarily want to contemplate that right now. Those things that you think you absolutely don't have a need for, or never have a need for, or whatever, then do that. But I will remain the general finance comment is that your infrastructure and the cost of running this organization has a certain cost to it, and we seem to manage getting to acceptable tax levels, but you do have to consider where your infrastructure is and plan for the future. But I mean, you're parking these recreation things, and those will be put aside for further discussion.
Conseiller Dan?
Just regarding Councillor Yvon's comment, and correct me if I'm wrong. The process that we're doing right now is we're having debates on whether one thing should be approved and another thing should not be approved. And then what we're basically doing is just bringing that to the table. And then after that, we ask staff through the CAO to go back, look at what they heard, and then come back with a plan which would be amicable to us. Is that the process, Jay?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, thank you.
And the process also involves council's direction on priorities pertaining to projects as well, because the budget that's being approved is the budget approved by council. So council also has a say in which project they identify as priority. And there's questions pertaining to projects for clarification regarding numbers, regarding initiatives, having more detail. I'll give you an example. In 2019, we replenished the playground Parc France Gaudeau in Verner. The cost for replenishing the equipment was $50,000. So of course you're going to be asking question if you want to relocate a playground for $75,000 and you upgraded and replaced the playground equipment in Verner 2 years ago for $50,000. So questions are being asked, and I think members of council have the right to be able to get those answers. And even before we move on, we can deal with each of those projects and call it to a vote right now. And they'll give direction to staff. Why rehash it a second time?
Can we take a break, Madam? Madam Mayor, it's 2:30 before we do anything else.
I would need a volunteer as a mover and a seconder. I would have appreciated finishing this off, but then I've already seen 3 hands up, Conseiller Rowley, Conseiller Chris, as a mover and a seconder for the resolution to proceed into a 15-minute recess.
Moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Fisher. Approximately 2:30 p.m. Motion is tabled for a 15-minute recess.
Okay, everyone in agreement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, carried. Adopted. 15-minute recess. Chris, Dan. Chris. Okay, so we're only missing two councillors, Conseiller Elise et Conseiller Dan. See Conseiller Elise coming back on. Maybe not. Conseiller Dan. And Steph is there. Is Conseiller Elise back on? Okay, so we're gonna proceed after receiving the capital equipment, capital facilities, and the 2021 projects. So based on what's presented in front of us, we have the opportunity to walk through each project to give direction to staff on whether we support or not support. Conseiller Elise, for a reason or another, your screen is entirely red. Okay, perfect. Less difficult on the eye. So can we walk through each project to give direction to staff on what should be incorporated in the budget or not incorporated in the budget? Councillor Chris?
So I think that's not a particularly good idea quite yet, because I think we need to look at the whole picture first. For example, we got an elephant in the room that could, majorly affect the budget, and that's a bridge in Levine. And we haven't discussed that yet. And, I would like to see at least some money going to dedicated reserves so that when all the legal things are taken care of with the school in future years, that can be demolished. So I'd just like to get the whole picture before we're sort of picking at individual things. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a recommendation before proceeding and walking through each project one by one, that we wait until we proceed with other departments and have a better understanding of the entire scope of the budget. So would there be consensus with that?
Can I have a question? A question before that to clarify. I don't have a problem with that, as long that we all on the same page. That the last meeting, I guess, that we would, when we have went through everything, that we got to go back in each page, capital project especially, and line by line, say what you have to say, because at that point of time we would have got all the information that we need. Is that correct to assume that's what you're saying? Okay, Jay, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I have a couple points, but yeah, what Councillor Fisher indicated is completely correct. If you start going line by line, by the way, the vote, Your Worship, it was your recommendation first, not his. And so the existing, what we've been operating on is parking, and we've been through a few departments now, parking issues and moving them to the back so you can get a global perspective for what you want. Now, if you change midstream and you plan on taking that to a vote, that's the vote, is whether you want to start looking at it item by item now. If you're trusting your staff, my strong recommendation is that's not a good idea. Wait, have your questions, question them, and then as Councillor Senecal indicated, At the back, you don't have to vote, and you can feel free to pull everything up. We are pulling things up and bringing them back at the side. But you cannot look at your budget as a whole with these one-ups, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to have a bunch of people going back and forth and saying, okay, you're not giving me my bridge. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. Look at it at its entirety, and we will provide you with some options for how to fund what we can fund at the level that you want to fund. But it'll be done after you've gone through this, not
Okay.
piecemeal.
And I don't have any objection with that, as long as it's clear that all members of council will also have the opportunity, not just based on the recommendation of staff, but if there's something that they don't support or agree with, that they have the opportunity to identify it at a
That's always
later
the
date.
case.
And that's always the case, but I just want to make sure, because that's exactly what I heard from Councillor Alice. And then hearing from Councillor Chris, let's look at the big picture. And then with the involvement of staff, and then members of council as well. And I'm seeing nods of the heads, meaning yes.
That's the way it
In
should be.
agreement. Okay. Okay, good. So are there any further questions pertaining to the document that's been presented to us? Est-ce qu'il y a aucune autre question à ce qui traite le document qui nous a été présenté? No? Okay, so I'm going to pass it back to Stéphane, our Director of Community Services and ECDev, so he can walk us through the next department within the budget workbook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll move to page 32, Planning and Building. Okay. So I'll just go down to the bottom portion of page 32 and highlight some of the focus and goals for that department for 2021. We wish to complete or we are planning to complete the review of our subdivision policy, bringing that back to council. We're looking at the preliminary official plan 10-year review to begin the process this year. Review and finalize comprehensive building planning guides, and continue ongoing work with key stakeholders and partners on projects and opportunities for all sectors. To the next page, number 33, we'll go through the 2021 budgeted column, so second last to your right. What we're anticipating as far as revenue. Obviously, 2020, although we did do some adjustments tied to COVID, we have had a very busy and successful building and planning year. And we anticipate that this will continue on for the course of 2021. So the anticipated revenue derived from building permits is at 165, planning consent revenue at 27.5. And other revenue, and Melanie, please feel free to jump in to explain what other revenue is, but my understanding it's subdivision agreements and zoning amendments and whatnot form the bulk of that revenue.
Also, legal inquiries from lawyers for real estate transactions.
Okay. Moving down to HR costs. Salaries and wages are pretty well the same. There's no new positions tied to that department. Benefits and education remain unchanged from what we had initially proposed in 2020. Now down to operating costs. We have office supplies. I'll just go, instead of going line by line, some of the material changes, as you can see, is the $12,000 being requested for special projects. What special projects is, that's one specific thing, and it's to hire a consultant to assist us with our operational or our official plan review. That's the $12,000 that's earmarked for that. So this is not as complicated as other department budgets. So in an overview, that is what we are looking at for the building and planning department. Are there any questions?
Sorry, Councillor Alice, Councillor Chris.
I think Councillor Chris had his hand before me.
You know what? I'm just going according to
Okay.
what I've seen.
Okay. Okay, well, no, everything looks pretty good. I just have a question for the HR. Is Mel part of the this amount, or Mel is part of the admin? Both mix? Okay, thank you. So, and how many other employees are part of that, if I might ask?
We have one chief building official, one building inspector, and a building planning clerk.
Okay, no, that's okay. Thank you.
Councillor Chris?
So this is, I'm off topic slightly here, but I don't want to miss it. This is, you know, it's been a good news story, this department, for a couple of years, and we did have a presentation to council, I believe, last year before last, number of housing starts, this, that, and the other, in terms of what's going on, and I found that very useful, and I just want somebody to put a pin somewhere that I'd really like to see that information again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. Any other comments or questions? Other than updated reports pertaining to activities regarding permits and different classification because of sharing the good news. I haven't heard anything else. Okay, so I guess that wraps it up for that department for planning. So again, it's back to you, Stéphane, for economic development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll take everyone to page 34. So under economic development, our budget highlights are basically the addition of one full-time permanent economic development officer. And I just want to put this into context. So the Economic Development Committee has done a lot of work in a very short period of time. There's been a lot of input, a lot of discussion. They've provided council with an overview of their priority/strategic plan. And what's being proposed today is certainly has been done in consultation with the and the input of the Economic Development Committee. What you're seeing today is what they're requesting council to financially support, to allow them to complete and reach their goals and objectives. So if the addition of a full-time permanent economic development officer is one of the highlights pertaining to the budget. Continued contribution for recruitment and retention initiatives for health professional, what we commonly refer to doctor recruitment, but it's more so for health professionals. To hire consultants, and I'll walk you through that, to complete studies and plans as per the priorities plan provided to you by the committee, to enhance our marketing efforts for economic development purposes, and financial resources for community groups to implement community development initiatives. So over to page 35 now. Again, I'll stick to the 2021 proposed budget column. There might be questions pertaining to 2020. Obviously, there's still some 2020 IPM numbers in there. So I think it's important for us to look at 2021 moving forward. What's being budgeted as far as revenue is tied to grant application we will be submitting to both the province and the feds to help us support the two key plans that the committee would like to complete. One is the Weyerhaeuser land development strategy or feasibility study, and the second one being a housing development strategy. So those are the two key initiatives or studies that the committee would like to undertake. Generally, we see a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split between the municipality, the province, and the feds. So we anticipate that both of these studies are going to cost approximately $150,000, and that's how that $100,000 in granting revenue comes about. If we move down to HR cost, again, without repeating myself too much, the committee is requesting a creation of a new FTE, a qualified economic development officer. And along with that position, there's benefits, costs, and education and training as well. In addition, operating costs, as I mentioned, the committee would like to see enhanced marketing initiatives pertaining to economic development. So we're increasing that budget line item to $25,000. The community projects line for $25,000 is basically, I'm just looking at my notes here, to conduct, and that money would be made available to the committee to undertake economic development initiatives over the course of the year for consulting, economic development, or looking at specific economic development or investment opportunities to our committee, and conducting research, developing value propositions and whatnot. So that money would be earmarked for those types of special projects. The priority projects, we talked about the 2 feasibility studies, $75,000 each, which totals $150,000. The community initiatives is again being proposed by the committee, and that would be some dollars allocated to community groups throughout West Nipissing that would like to implement special initiatives within their community. So that fund would be made available. And again, we could discuss how that money could be distributed within various groups and specifically what it could be used for. But that's a start that they'd like to see to enhance community involvement and to move forward with certain initiatives that certain community members or volunteer groups would have that directly pertains to economic development, marketing, and community involvement. We're looking at doctor recruitment or health professional recruitment. A municipality has been working in partnership on those types of initiatives throughout a number of years, and that line item remains the same at $25,000. We're looking at IT support for the department. We've got office supplies, obviously with the new body of council supports that. We'll have office set up and IT equipment and supplies to have available for that new staff person. Following that on page 36, we have an overview of what the total operating costs are and the total expenditures and the net the net request in support of economic development being at $287,000 for 2021 with everything I've mentioned. So I don't know if there are any questions pertaining to anything that we've gone through.
Councillor Chris, Councillor Lise.
So I would just like to comment on the advertising line item because I don't think we do advertise ourselves well enough. And I know a number of years ago we put together a pamphlet for Sturgeon Falls, and then we did have the Joy to Be campaign. So when you look at advertising I realize we're not a small business, but when you look at advertising in terms of a businesses are spending something like 3%, 5% of their revenue on advertising. I know we're a different kettle of fish, I'm just saying. But to my mind, for a municipality with our budget and our size, $25,000 is not enough to do all the things that we could do to promote ourselves. Thank you.
Councillor Lise.
Okay, thank you, Stéphane. I think you're right when you're saying that in such a short amount of time that the committee made a major step in the right direction. I fully support the full-time, I don't know what you're going to call it, but for people that would act on behalf of our name and strictly do economic development. I fully support that. The $25,000 for marketing, I also support that. The only thing that I have a little bit of issue with that, and I think I've said so also in in our meeting, because the committee is aware of that, it was the $25,000 for community project and community initiative. I'm not saying maybe in the future, but this year, by the time we hire somebody else to take over and look and the possibility, because there will be money available for all kind of things. And we have a line of a community project, community initiative, and community services. So, I mean, I don't think if we put an increase at some point of time, it would have to be in community services, like, because if we have every department that have those line, what at the end of all the department, it would be a big amount. So, question I have about doctor recruitment, which I fully support, but Stefan, really, what kind of activity or they do for that amount of money? What is it? I know at some point of time they would go into a major recruiting in Toronto. I was part of once years ago. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were maybe intensive to give doctor, like when they come into town. So could you a little bit elaborate so people can know what that $25,000 go? Please, thank you. Your mic is off, Stefan.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
For you, Madam Mayor, I don't believe, Councillor, that any of the municipal contribution to doctor recruitment is used for incentives. I think that is a totally separate matter. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of that money is used towards them going to recruitment fairs directly at various universities throughout Ontario. They use part of that money to attract doctors to our community through doing these types of events. Obviously, 20,000 when you're sending a team to Toronto for 4 days, when we used to be able to travel for those purposes, is just a small percentage of their overall doctor recruitment budget. But it's something that they value. It's something that is put to good use as far as attracting not only doctors but health professionals to our community. That is actually 20,000 that we transfer over to the West Nipissing General Hospital that basically oversee the recruitment efforts for our community. There's a $5,000 portion that also allows us to, when we do have new physicians or health professionals come into our community, to assist them, to provide them with welcome baskets and whatnot, to make them feel part of our community, in hopes that they're going to stay here for the long term. So those are the types of initiatives that are done with that line item, Councillor.
Okay, so can I ask supplement to that, Madam Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so last year we understand a part of COVID. Do they give us like kind of a report where they went or whatever? Not the detail, like we don't want micromanagement what they're doing, but do we receive anything that tells us really that if they went to conference and they were successful? Because I know there's a lot more doctor than we used to have, and there's new doctor in the last even 3-4 years that's coming in. So somehow, somewhere, that 25,000 is going a long way to bring doctors in. But if the community have any question, I mean, that would be the time to what we're doing.
There is a report that's provided annually to a director of community services along with the invoicing. And it provides a list of exactly what was the recruitment for the various health professionals. And I believe Stefan, the CEO of the hospital, submitted that probably a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe that report, a copy of it, can be shared with all members of council. So it would provide information of what we're getting for the $25,000 budget line. and what's the impact for the community when it comes to recruitment and retention of health professionals. If everyone would like a copy of that.
Yes, and thank you very much for the information. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you.
Conseiller Leo, you had your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, what happens sometimes is you will get some new recruits from Dawson and Sudbury. They'll bring them down for the weekend and pay their hotels and their partner, available, whatever it is, and you know, to introduce them to the community. That's one of the things they do.
Okay.
That's not all they do, but that's some of the part of the things they do.
Thank you, Councillor Leo.
And at one point, they were also producing marketing material pertaining to West Nipissing that was issued to individuals pursuing their studies to be able to showcase West Nipissing and get them convinced in hopefully setting their home or their practice in this community. So all of this combined, but we get an annual report from the CEO of the hospital pertaining to what occurred throughout the year and how many new hires and what the money was used for. And that copy can be shared with everyone.
Thank you.
Any further questions pertaining to the economic development budget that's being proposed? I as well, I want to say thank you to the volunteers that sit on the advisory committee. They've done a phenomenal job in the short duration that they have been appointed as a committee. And they've identified the priorities. They presented the priorities to council. I also had the concern when the budget was presented to me pertaining to community project, community initiatives, and the fact that there was already under projects a budget line for community services. I just, when you have a budget, it's nice to be able to identify exactly what are the projects, but when projects are not earmarked, that's where I normally start questioning what's the purpose of the project. So that would be 25,000 that I would red circle in the interim. So when we get back to the full analysis of our budget, I hope that that one is parked, because I find that 25,000 to me would be something that I'd like to discuss further. Conseillère Lise?
Madam Mayor, but the $25,000 for community initiative too, like what is it? Because
Well,
I don't recall what the, you know, we saw the budget and the line were there and we discussed those line and we did.
community initiatives was identified by the committee that if they wanted to pursue community initiatives within the community. So that's why I say there's $25,000 that would be something that we can discuss further, since notes are being taken on issues that are being discussed while we're going through the various departments.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? None? Okay. So that would conclude the presentation from our Director of Community Services and Economic Development. So next, are we up to proceeding with fire, or do we want to deal with fire on Wednesday evening?
I think
That would be your call. You know, so that council gets, in fairness to the chief, gets a clean break. I think we can probably deal with it on Wednesday. I don't know, Chief, if you're going to be really disappointed, like if you put on your best clothes today.
So the next budget meeting scheduled, according to the calendar, would be Wednesday on the 24th at 6 o'clock. And we would be able to have a fresh perspective, open mind, dealing with the fire budget, if everyone would be in agreement with that. I just saw 1, 2. Okay, so I sense that majority has lifted their hands and that's giving direction. Jay?
Just one little add-on, because we haven't forgotten, and so the treasurer will be speaking to the library board CEO, and so that might come on this Wednesday as well. So,
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so would there be a volunteer for a mover and a seconder for a resolution to adjourn? Conseiller Leo, Conseiller Rowley.
It is moved by Councillor Mallett and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-22, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality, to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 22nd of March, 2021, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Is everyone in agreement? Carried, adoptee.
And it's moved by Councillor Mallett and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that the budget meeting of council held on March the 22nd, 2021 be adjourned.
Any objections? None. Carried, adoptee. So this concludes our budget meeting for today and until Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. Thank you. Merci.